know anything about birth control, you know that it's not just used to prevent unwanted pregnancies or to protect against the transmission of STDs, right? Birth control can be used to deal with ovarian cysts, right? Amongst other biological issues that women deal with. Sometimes birth control is the most affordable and effective means of dealing with those issues, right? So again, the idea is, well, maybe women might know more about this thing than men do, right? Same thing with why we don't just want a bunch of white people together when we're talking about racial issues, right? That maybe people of color, people who experience the effects of racism, probably know more about it, right? But the idea is that, again, this doesn't just come automatically, it's something that comes through resistance. And so since everyone is always going to have these biases, right, we're sort of getting away from the idea of truly being objective, that we want to recognize some of these biases as good, right, leading more towards the truth, whereas others are going to be identified as bad, leading more towards falsity. And we'll see more of that next week in Philosophy of Science, right? But the idea here is, again, maybe we not only need to move away from the notion of objectivity, but so we don't collapse into relativism, we just maybe need to redefine objectivity. So here we have, again, 3 different notions of different ways to redefine objectivity. They sort of correlate to those different views of situated knowers, with our author this week looking at strong objectivity, right? So the idea is, instead of thinking of objectivity as something that is true in the world independent of any mind, as it was traditionally, we can understand it in terms of being something that the community of those with epistemic privilege on that matter have come to a consensus on, right? So if we're looking at, what is the truth about the experience of black men in America, well, black men are going to be in the best position to give us the answer to that. And that the consensus that they come to as a group, right, if a consensus is able to be made, right, is going to be the closest thing to objectivity we can get. But what's great about that is that it not only avoids relativism, but it leaves open the possibility of revitalizing and updating our understandings of truth, right, which in science we always want to do. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some potential problems with standpoint theory, right? I'm going to list a lot of them here for you to take a look at, but I think the biggest one comes from the fact that it's really difficult to account for intersectionality, in the sense that you might have someone who in some cases has great socioeconomic privilege, but in other cases has very little socioeconomic privilege. And so what does that mean for their epistemic privilege? Does it cancel out, right? Does it, it can be very hard to track, because people do not fall into a single category, right? That we have these very complex identities.